5 harsh spiritual realities you face when vibration stops rising. Let me ask you something, and really sit with this for a moment. Have you ever felt stuck on your spiritual path? Like you were climbing higher and higher, your vibration getting stronger, your connection to the universe deepening, and then, suddenly nothing, no movement, no progress, just stillness. It's like the light that once guided you has dimmed, and you're left wondering what happened. Did I do something wrong? Why can't I feel the growth anymore? If you've ever been in that place, or if you're there right now, what I'm about to share with you will hit deep. Because when your vibration stops rising, it's not just frustrating, it's one of the most challenging and humbling moments on the spiritual journey. And only those who endure it and learn from it will truly understand the purpose behind it. Today we're diving into 5 harsh spiritual realities you face when your vibration stops rising. These truths aren't easy to hear, but they're necessary. They'll challenge you, provoke you, and ultimately guide you back to yourself. So stay with me, because the very fact that you're here listening to this means you're ready for the truth. The first harsh reality is this: spiritual growth isn't linear. I know that sounds like a cliché, but let's break it down in a way that really hits home. When we first begin our spiritual path, everything feels exciting, doesn't it? Every meditation feels profound. Every synchronicity feels like a sign from the universe. You feel lighter, freer, more connected. It's like the universe is pulling you forward, showing you glimpses of your highest self. And in those moments, it's easy to believe that the path is a straight line, that as long as you keep doing the work, your vibration will keep rising higher and higher forever. But that's not how it works. Growth comes in cycles. There are moments of expansion, when your vibration soars, and moments of contraction, when it feels like you've hit a wall. These periods of stagnation, or what some call the plateau, are not signs of failure. They're invitations to go deeper. Think about it: when you're constantly expanding, you're reaching outward. But when expansion stops, it's a signal to turn inward. The pause isn't the end of your growth, it's the beginning of a deeper transformation. But here's where it gets tough. Most people resist the plateau. They panic. They think, I must be doing something wrong. And in that panic, they start chasing after external solutions, new teachers, new practices, new distractions, when the real solution is to sit with the discomfort. To ask yourself, what is this stillness trying to teach me? What part of myself am I avoiding? Let me ask you that right now. What are you avoiding within yourself? Because the truth is, the plateau isn't a punishment. It's a mirror, reflecting the parts of you that are ready to be healed.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound spiritual lesson.
The second harsh reality is this: your ego disguises itself as spirituality. This one is hard to hear, but it's crucial. When your vibration is rising, it's easy to feel like you're on top of the world. You start to identify with your spiritual progress. You think, I'm evolving, I'm waking up, I'm becoming more enlightened. And while that can feel empowering, it's also a trap. Because the moment you identify with your spiritual progress, the ego sneaks in and takes over. It starts using your spirituality as a way to feel superior, to judge others, or to feed your sense of self-worth. So when your vibration stops rising, it's the universe's way of humbling you. It's a reminder that spirituality isn't about becoming better than anyone else. It's about becoming more authentic, more real, more in tune with the truth of who you are. And sometimes that truth isn't glamorous. It's messy, it's painful, it's full of doubts and insecurities. But that's the point. The plateau strips away the ego's illusions and forces you to confront the parts of yourself you'd rather ignore. So let me ask you, where is your ego hiding in your spiritual journey? Are you using your practices to escape from your pain or to face it? Are you chasing enlightenment for the sake of your soul or for the sake of your image? These are the questions that only you can answer, and the answers will determine whether you stay stuck or start growing again. The third harsh reality is one that most people don't want to admit: you will feel alone. When your vibration is rising, it's easy to feel connected to the universe, to others, and to your higher self. But when that momentum stops, it can feel like the connection has been severed. You start to wonder, where did the guidance go? Why can't I feel the universe anymore? And in that silence, it's easy to feel abandoned. But here's the truth: the silence isn't abandonment. It's initiation. It's the universe asking you to find the connection within yourself. Because as long as you rely on external signs, synchronicities, or spiritual highs to feel connected, you're missing the point. True connection doesn't come from outside of you, it comes from within. And the periods of stillness are there to teach you the dot. But let's be real, that doesn't make it any less painful, does it? The loneliness can be crushing. It can make you question everything: your path, your purpose, your worth. And in those moments, it's tempting to give up, to say, maybe this isn't for me, maybe I'm not cut out for this. But let me tell you something: the loneliness is temporary. It's a rite of passage. And if you can sit with it, if you can hold space for yourself in the silence, you will discover a connection deeper than anything you've ever felt before. So, let me ask you, how do you respond to the silence? Do you run from it, or do you embrace it? Because the way you answer that question will define your spiritual journey. The shadow you cannot escape. When growth demands confronting yourself, let's pick up right where we left off. But now let's go deeper. We've talked about how growth isn't linear, how the ego disguises itself as spirituality, and how loneliness is an unavoidable part of the journey. Now, it's time to face one of the most difficult and least talked about realities. When your vibration stops rising, it's often because you're being called to confront your shadow. What is the shadow? It's every part of yourself you've ignored, rejected, suppressed, or denied. It's the pain you've buried, the fears you've avoided, and the patterns you've inherited but never questioned. It's the you that you don't want others or even yourself to see. And here's the harsh truth: as your vibration rises, your shadow doesn't just disappear. It actually becomes more visible. Why? Because spiritual growth isn't about escaping darkness. It's about illuminating it. It's about bringing the unconscious into the light of your awareness so that it can be healed. But when that moment comes, most people resist. And that resistance is what causes your vibration to hit a plateau. Think about it: when your vibration is rising, it feels amazing, right? You're lighter, freer, more connected. But then, out of nowhere, something triggers you. Maybe it's an old wound, a relationship dynamic, or a fear you thought you'd already worked through. Suddenly, you're pulled back into the heaviness and you feel stuck. That's your shadow showing up, asking to be seen. But instead of facing it, most people fight it. They push it back down. They distract themselves with more spiritual practices, hoping to bypass the discomfort. But let me tell you something: there is no bypassing the shadow. You can't meditate it away. You can't affirm it out of existence. The only way out is through. Let me ask you something: what are you avoiding within yourself? What emotions, memories, or truths do you keep running from? Because I promise you, those are the very things blocking your growth. And until you're willing to face them, your vibration will remain stuck. The spiritually awakened know this, which is why they approach their shadow work with courage and compassion. They don't judge their darkness, they get curious about it. They don't run from their pain, they sit with it, feel it, and learn from it. They understand that the shadow isn't their enemy, it's their teacher. But let's be real, shadow work is messy. It's not the picture-perfect version of spirituality you see on social media. It's crying in the middle of the night because an old wound has reopened. It's realizing you've been projecting your fears onto others and taking responsibility for it. It's feeling like you're falling apart, only to realize you're actually breaking open. This is the work that no one wants to do, but that everyone must do if they want to grow. And here's the thing, the deeper you go into your shadow, the higher your vibration can rise. Because the more space you create by releasing what no longer serves you, the more light you can hold. But here's the paradox, the shadow isn't just about pain. It's also where your greatest gifts are hidden. The parts of yourself you've rejected aren't bad, they're just misunderstood. For example, maybe you've been suppressing your anger because you were taught that's spiritual. People should always be calm and peaceful. But anger, when channeled consciously, can be a powerful force for change. Or maybe you've been hiding your vulnerability because you associate it with weakness. But true vulnerability is one of the greatest strengths you can have. So let me ask you, what parts of yourself have you labeled as unacceptable? What gifts might be hiding in the parts of yourself you've been too afraid to explore? Shadow work isn't about fixing yourself. It's about integrating yourself. It's about bringing all parts of you, light and dark, strength and weakness, joy and pain, into wholeness. And when you do that, something extraordinary happens. The very things that once held you back become the fuel for your growth. The wounds that once caused you to shrink become the wisdom that helps you expand. The parts of yourself you once feared become the parts you love the most. This is the alchemy of the spiritual journey, turning your darkness into light, your pain into power, your shadow into your greatest ally. But here's the challenge, shadow work requires radical honesty. It requires you to look at yourself with unflinching clarity and say, this is where I'm still holding on. This is where I'm still afraid. This is where I'm still out of alignment. And that level of honesty can be terrifying. But it's also liberating. Because when you face your shadow, you free yourself from its grip. You stop being a prisoner of your past, your fears, and your limiting beliefs. You step into the fullness of who you are, not because you've eliminated your darkness, but because you've embraced it.so. Let me ask you one last question for this section. If you stopped running from your shadow and started owning it, how would your life change? How would your relationships change? How would your vibration begin to rise again? These are the questions that only you can answer. But I promise you, the answers are worth everything. The silent call of the soul surrendering to the stillness of transformation. Now we come to the heart of this journey, where the silence, stagnation, and resistance you've been facing transform from burdens into blessings. But here's the truth most people don't want to hear: when your vibration stops rising, it's not just a pause, it's a sacred invitation to surrender. And surrender is one of the hardest lessons we face on the spiritual path. It demands trust, patience, and faith, even when everything inside us is screaming for control. Let me ask you something. How do you feel about surrender? Does the very word make you uncomfortable, as though it implies giving up or losing power? That's the misconception we often carry. We think surrender means defeat, when in reality, it's the ultimate act of strength. Surrender isn't about giving up, it's about letting go. It's about releasing the need to control your journey and trusting that the universe, your soul, and life itself know exactly what they're doing. When your vibration stops rising, it's easy to fall into the trap of over-efforting. You think, maybe I need to meditate harder, manifest more, or find the next spiritual technique to get me out of this stuck place. But the more you push, the more stuck you feel. Why? Because spiritual growth doesn't respond to force, it responds to flow. And flow comes from surrender. It comes from saying, I might not understand why this is happening, but I trust that it's happening for me, not to me. But let's be honest, surrendering isn't easy. It requires you to sit in the discomfort of not knowing. It requires you to let go of the illusion of control and lean into the mystery of life. And for most of us, that's terrifying. We're wired to seek certainty, to plan, to fix. But the spiritual path isn't about certainty, it's about trust. Trust in yourself. Trust in yourself. Trust in the process. Trust in the divine timing of your growth. Here's the paradox: when you stop trying to force your vibration to rise, it often rises on its own. Why? Because the resistance you feel, the heaviness, the stagnation, the frustration, isn't caused by the stillness itself. It's caused by your fight against it. You're like a swimmer caught in a riptide, exhausting yourself trying to swim against the current, when the real solution is to let the current carry you. The moment you surrender, you stop wasting energy on resistance and allow the flow of life to guide you to exactly where you need to be. But surrender doesn't mean passivity. It's not about sitting back and doing nothing. It's about aligning your actions with trust. It's about listening to the quiet whispers of your soul and following its guidance, even if that guidance feels small or insignificant. Maybe your soul is calling you to rest, to take a break from the relentless pursuit of growth. Maybe it's calling you to revisit the basics: gratitude, presence, self-care. Or maybe it's calling you to simply be, to sit in stillness without trying to fix or change anything. Let me ask you, what is your soul quietly asking of you right now? Are you listening, or are you too busy trying to control the outcome? Another layer of surrender is releasing attachment to the outcome of your spiritual journey. We often get so fixated on the idea of raising our vibration or achieving enlightenment that we forget the purpose of the journey isn't to get somewhere, it's to be fully present with where we are. When your vibration stops rising, it's an opportunity to ask yourself, am I chasing growth, or am I allowing it? Am I attached to a destination, or am I fully experiencing the path? Here's the truth: growth doesn't always look like growth. Sometimes it looks like stillness. Sometimes it looks like falling apart. Sometimes it looks like retreating into your own darkness. But those moments are just as important, if not more so, than the moments of expansion. Because it's in the stillness that your roots grow deeper. It's in the falling apart that you shed the layers that no longer serve you. And it's in the darkness that you find the light within yourself. So, how do you surrender in a way that allows transformation to unfold? Start with small, intentional acts of letting go. Let go of the need to have all the answers. Let go of the timeline you've imposed on your growth. Let go of the belief that you're not enough, just as you are right now, in this moment. And instead, focus on trusting the process. Trust that the universe knows what it's doing. Trust that your soul knows what it needs. Trust that even in the stillness, you are growing. Let me ask you one final question. What would happen if you stopped trying to rise and simply allowed yourself to rest in the truth of who you are? What would happen if you stopped resisting the stillness and started embracing it as part of your journey? Because the truth is, surrender isn't the end of growth, it's the beginning of a deeper, more aligned, and more authentic transformation. The rebirth of your vibration, rising stronger through the stillness. Now we arrive at the culmination of this journey, the moment where everything we've explored comes together. When your vibration stops rising, it can feel like an ending, but in reality, it's a rebirth, a doorway to a version of yourself that is more authentic, grounded, and aligned than ever before. But here's the ultimate truth: the rebirth of your vibration doesn't happen by climbing higher, it happens by descending deeper. And in that descent, you discover the strength, wisdom, and clarity necessary to rise again. Let's start with a simple but profound realization. When your vibration stops rising, it's not because you've failed, it's because you've been called to integrate. Think of it this way: every time your vibration rises, you expand your energy, your perception, and your understanding of yourself and the world. But with expansion comes responsibility. You can't just keep climbing without grounding that growth into your daily life. If spiritual expansion is like reaching for the stars, integration is like planting your feet firmly on the earth so you can walk your path with clarity and purpose. And when your vibration pauses, it's the universe saying, now it's time to integrate what you've learned. But integration isn't glamorous. It's not the kind of thing we post about or share with others. It happens in the quiet, unremarkable moments when you choose to show patience instead of reacting out of anger, when you pause to reflect on your triggers instead of blaming others, when you turn inward instead of seeking validation outside of yourself. These small, subtle acts are the foundation of true spiritual growth, and when you commit to them, you're not just raising your vibration, you're stabilizing it, ensuring that it becomes a permanent part of who you are. Let me ask you, are you willing to honor the pause? Are you willing to see it not as an obstacle, but as a gift? Because it's in the stillness that you build the strength to rise again. It's in the quiet that you hear the whispers of your soul, guiding you toward your next step. And when you honor that process, something incredible happens. Your vibration begins to rise, not because you're chasing it, but because you become the kind of person who naturally vibrates higher. Another truth about rebirth is that it requires letting go, not just of old habits or beliefs, but of the person you used to be. When your vibration stops rising, it's often because you're clinging to an outdated version of yourself. Maybe it's a version of you that prioritizes external success over internal peace. Or maybe it's a version of you that's afraid to step into your full power because you don't feel ready. Whatever it is, the pause is asking you to release that version of yourself so that you can step into who you're meant to become. So let me ask you, who are you still holding on to? And who would you be if you let that version of yourself go? The final piece of this rebirth is trust. Trust in the process. Trust in the timing. Trust that even when it feels like nothing is happening, everything is happening. Because here's the secret: when you stop fixating on the outcome and start trusting the process, your vibration doesn't just rise, it aligns. And alignment is what creates true transformation. It's what allows you to move through life with ease, clarity, and purpose, knowing that you're exactly where you're meant to be. So, as we close this journey together, let me leave you with one final thought. Your vibration is not a race to the top. It's a dance between expansion and integration, between light and shadow, between surrender and action. And when your vibration pauses, it's not a sign that you're stuck, it's a sign that you're being prepared for something greater. So embrace the stillness, honor the pause, and trust that when the time is right, you will rise again, not as the person you were, but as the person you were always meant to be.